Hi guys, welcome back. I hope you're all doing well. So for today's video, I'm just going to discuss some things that I want to share with you when it comes to learning how to drive. If you've watched my other videos recently or like within the past couple months, I had a driving instructor and driving lessons, and it was just a struggle really to learn how to drive. So I'm just going to share some things that I think might be helpful if you are learning or if you're just watching this video. It's actually Thanksgiving today and I'm like bored, so I'm filming this. Like I said, I did have a driving instructor and I would definitely recommend getting one if you are able to. They can be helpful. My driving instructor was a little bit sketchy and I definitely think that I could have gotten a better one. But ultimately, he did make me feel comfortable with driving on the road, so that's something that you could consider doing if you don't want to do it with a parent or if you just don't have anyone to really practice with. Most DMVs do have the manuals that you can go and grab, or a lot of them have switched to having them online. Make sure that you are reading the manuals just because they can be very specific about certain things, especially if you haven't taken your permit test yet. You don't really know anything about driving, then I think that's a good start. If you don't really like reading, then you can obviously watch videos here on YouTube. There's a lot of people who do like step-by-step tutorials on certain things when it comes to learning how to drive. So when it comes to your test though, my recommendation is make sure that you are really good at parallel parking. So for my test, I took this last month in October. The driving instructor doesn't get in the car with you, so they literally stand outside of your car and watch you drive like on this little course. I don't know how it's going on now, if they've changed it, if it's different in other states. I'm not promoting that, you know, go to the DMV and take your test and you don't have to be that good at driving, but the main thing is parallel parking, just because they're not obviously going on the real road with you. You're just literally in the DMV parking lot. One thing though that my driving instructor did help me with parallel parking was he said to line up with the parking spot that you're going to be, pass it up a little. The front of the parking spot should be in your right back window of your passenger, and then you should turn your wheel all the way and go back up into it. With parallel parking, it's really helpful if you do have a car with a backup camera. I mean, people obviously have done it without. To be more specific with backing up, he recommended to go, I think, until you got into like the yellow part of it on your camera, and then do like 1.5 turn the other way, stop once you get to the red, and then turn it all the way to the left. I think when you're in the car, turn it all the way to the left, and then just back up and then turn your wheel all the way the other way and just pull forward and straighten out. Might sound simple to just turn the wheel all crazy, but you definitely have to make sure that you are watching how you pull in. More things to know though about the test. Definitely know your signals. I know it might sound stupid, but you can forget. I almost messed up a little bit on my test, which I'll talk about in a second. Just practice, go over it. I know probably your blinkers are easy, but know where your high beams are, how to turn them off, windshield wipers, hazard signals, or four-way flashers, or whatever they're called. They do ask you about like the air conditioning, like, you know, how does that work? One thing that I got like a little confused on, I know it sounds a little stupid, was the high beams and stuff. He's like, turn it to low beams. I'm like, what the fuck is low beams? Like, we have high beams and we have regular. But he just meant like regular, you know, beams during the day, or like if you don't have high beams on. There are times though that my driving instructor said that people messed up with the signals and they didn't even get to do the test. They just automatically failed right there before even, you know, showing that they could really drive. More recommendations for when you are taking the test: make sure that you're coming to a complete stop. Even when you are driving, make sure you do that as well, but especially on the test. Even if you're just sitting at the stop sign for a couple seconds and it might seem like a little bit too long, it's better to stop fully and wait than to rush through it. Definitely take your time during your test. And with parallel parking, make sure you're putting your blinkers on to let people know, obviously, if you are out in the real world, that you are pulling into the spot. On the test especially, they do look for that when you're going into the parking spot and also coming out of it. And just use your blinker signals even if you're not sure if you need one, because it's better than to use it than to not use it. When it comes to driving in weather conditions, always go slower than the speed limit. If your test is in the rain especially too, make sure you are going slower. It can cause for like hydroplaning and shit like that. Some more thing with my driving instructor, he recommended like when you're on the real road to hug the yellow line. I personally don't agree with it. I'm not saying that you should be like off the road driving on the side of the road over the white line, But there have been times so far with me driving for like the month that I have been out. There's been times when a lot of people, they're doing the same thing or even in my lane hugging the yellow line. So I would pretty much just say to stay like in the middle of your lane if that's possible. If I would have been hugging the yellow line like he suggested that I do, I would have gotten sideswept so many times, or honestly my mirror probably would have gotten knocked off of my car. Going off of that, this is kind of just a random side note. Always be looking around. I'm not saying like drive and like be looking like that, but don't just look straight ahead at the road, because there are so many other factors that can happen when you're driving. There could be deer, animals, anything running out. There could be someone randomly walking across the road. So if you're only paying attention to straight ahead, there are so many things that you could be missing. And especially watch other drivers. I feel like that is the most important thing. And this is why my driving instructor just wasn't good in my opinion. He told me like that I should have faith in other drivers, that they know what they're doing and to trust their instincts and stuff. Like he said this about like at a roundabout turn. He said I should trust that people in a roundabout are gonna stop at their yield sign. They don't do that all the time. The way I see it is just watch people. Act as if these people don't know how to drive, and always be paying attention to where their car is going, because if you are able to, you could obviously swerve out of the way if they come into your lane. Or just be aware of other drivers though, because not everyone is a good driver. You might not be a good driver. They might be worse than you. Even like the other day, I was leaving Dunkin' Donuts and this I was pulling around the building, and this one guy, he like pulled off to the side and then he decided to drive. So I was letting him go. So I'm here trying to pull out of the parking lot, and he's coming like this, trying to pull into a parking space. He almost hit like my passenger side door, and I honked at him. I don't ever be honking, but he could have hit me. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? You're staring right at me. Did you think I'm gonna back up and let you pull in? Like when you're stopped behind someone, let's say like at a red light, you should always be able to see their back tires. And I think it's important to make sure that you aren't following up their ass. I hate when people do it to me, so I don't do it to other people. There are many situations that could obviously happen when you're at a red light. I mean, there could be an accident. Rear end accidents are very common. Typically, it's just because people aren't paying attention. So what I would recommend with not being directly behind someone, leaving some space, is that if you do get rear-ended, there's a possibility that you could swerve so that you don't hit the person in front of you. Obviously, if you're right up their ass, there's no avoiding that, because then at least if that happens, then only the other person behind you is really at fault. You don't have to cause any problem, because you will be at fault because you're too close to them. Learn what the signs mean, so definitely like go back to the manual. They don't really ask too much about like signs and stuff on, I don't think at all, on the driving test, but the permit they did. Pedestrians obviously have the right of way, even if you don't think that they should. You always have to make sure you're yielding to them and watching out for them in general. When it comes to yield signs, you don't always have to come to a complete stop. You do have to stop and let other traffic go, like oncoming traffic. You will be at fault if you don't stop and you hit someone. Those are just some things though that I learned from my own driving experience. I'm still learning every day, like as I'm on the road. So the biggest thing that's annoying me though so far with driving is other drivers. Just because a lot of them just want to be on your ass all the time, and I hate it. Don't get me wrong, if I'm driving really slow, then I understand that, and if I'm driving slow enough that it's seriously an issue, then I would just pull over. But what really pisses me off is that I'm probably going a little bit above the speed limit or the speed limit, so the fact that these people are on my ass, it's like, how much faster do you want me to go? Like, it's so frustrating, because chances are if past a cop, you know, I'm gonna get pulled over. What am I gonna say? That this person behind me was following me really close, that's why I'm speeding? I just hate to have to feel like I should pull over to let them go around me because they want to go fast. It can cause problems, because if I'm pulling over, there's so many other things. I could literally pop a tire depending on where I'm pulling over. If it's like the side of the road, I could go into a hole in a ditch. People just don't care, and I feel like that's why there's so many accidents and problems. People just aren't mindful of other drivers. Hopefully you guys learned a couple things. Let me know if you have any questions. I've only been out here a month, so I'm not a professional driver. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time.